Then on Sports Central, we go for a college football game preview and prediction on the 2023 Boca Raton Bowl matchup between the South Florida Bulls and the Syracuse Orange. Two teams that have had good seasons getting to this point. Both teams are at 6-6. Both teams had to win their last games of the regular season to get to this point. And overall, this is a matchup that should be pretty competitive. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today. Let's get started with your team trends. South Florida beat Charlotte 48-14 to finish out the regular season. Nice win there for the Bulls. One of their more dominant wins this season. This team has found a way to win some close games, and they've definitely been inconsistent this season. But for South Florida, obviously this is a pretty good season for them. The first bowl season this team has been in quite a while. But as for Syracuse, beat Wake Forest 35-31. Nice win for them as well, getting up to 6 wins on the season. And I mean, you look at Syracuse, they had a strong start to the season, went 4-0 in September, or until the Clemson game where they got blown out. And October was cold for this team. They lost 5 straight, but they've won 2 of their last 3. So for both teams, some good momentum heading into this matchup. Games to be on Thursday, the 21st, in Boca Raton. Your kickoff is 8 p.m. Eastern, so later matchup for both these teams here. Spread's going Syracuse by 3, so the Orange a slight favorite in this matchup. But the FPI, this kind of surprised me. Syracuse is a heavy favorite, according to the FPI, going 74% towards the Orange, and over under 60.5. I will say this is a matchup that has all of the makings of being a high-scoring shootout. I think you got two teams that are pretty evenly matched, and really both offenses are pretty strong. Both defenses not so much at points this season. So I wouldn't be surprised one bit if this was definitely a higher-scoring matchup. Your bowl history for both teams. Once again, for South Florida, they haven't been to a bowl game in a while. The last game they were in was back in 2018, the Gasparilla Bowl, where they lost to Marshall. But before that, they were in the Birmingham Bowl twice, where they won both. I mean, this team had some pretty good success there from 2015 to 2018 or so. They've kind of gone cold since, but looking to build back some of that momentum this season here in 2023. But as for Syracuse, 16-10 overall. This team's been to a decent amount of bowl games, but not really in recent memory. They were in the Pinstripe Bowl last season, where they lost to Minnesota. Before that, it was 2018 in the Camping World Bowl, and then the Texas Bowl back in 2013, where they won both of those. But your stat comparison, South Florida, 42nd in points per game. This is a team that's not very strong defensively. They're 122nd in points allowed. I mean, their pass defense especially is next to worst in the FBS this season, 132nd in pass yards allowed this season. But offensively, once again, this team finds ways to win. They're 31st in pass yards a game and 16th in rush yards a game. So overall, a pretty strong offense here with South Florida. You got Byron Brown, who's had a good season. It's just the turnovers for this team. If you can prevent turnovers, that is really the way to success for South Florida in this matchup. And honestly, that applies for both teams. When you got as competitive of a matchup as this could be, turnovers could really make the difference. So be look at Syracuse, 98th in points per game, 58th in points allowed. This team is definitely stronger defensively than South Florida is. Their offense, though, isn't quite as complete. They're 124th in pass yards a game. Garrett Schrader's been okay at best this season. And he was pretty good in the first 4 games, but otherwise it's been pretty hit or miss this season. But the backfield has found a way. This is 35th ranked rushing game in the country. You got LaKeith Allen, who's had a strong season, over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. Definitely worth keeping an eye on him. He's a pretty strong running back who's tough to stop. And for South Florida, I mean, despite their pass defense being ranked 132nd, that makes their rush defense look pretty good, 86th. And 86th is still terrible for a rush defense. So for South Florida, bottom line, they're going to have to score a lot of points if they want to win this game. I mean, Syracuse's offense isn't anything too special. But either way, when you got a defense that's ranked as low as South Florida's is, it is going to be tough to win a bowl game, and your offense is going to have some pretty strong success. But your recent matchups, South Florida beat Charlotte 48-14, lost to UTSA 21-49. You can kind of see that inconsistency. They beat Temple by 4, also beat UConn by a field goal, but that Memphis loss, I mean, that's a really good example of this South Florida team this season. They can score points. They put up 50 in that matchup, but the problem is they allowed 59, and in the end, that's not gonna make it happen. And even if you look back to October, this team lost to UAB and lost to Florida Atlantic in back-to-back weeks, allowed 56 points in both of those games. And the one that really stands out to me, I still remember this game back in mid-September. South Florida took on Alabama at home back in mid-September, and the final score was 17-3. They only scored 3 points, but their defense held Alabama to 17, which is just insane to me. That was obviously back when Alabama was really struggling with their offense, trying to find some kind of identity, and they've really turned it on down the stretch, so that's why Alabama's in the college football playoff. But for South Florida, that was definitely a big outlier if you look at the schedule, and obviously, I mean, their defense has really had some bad performances throughout the season. But for Syracuse, beat Wake Forest 35-31, lost to Georgia Tech by 9, did beat Pitt 28-13, so a couple of nice wins in their last 3 games. But overall, if you look back to October, in the middle of the season, this team did struggle quite a bit. They got blown out to Clemson, blown out to North Carolina, blown out to Florida State. Both of those were just, by a combined score of like 81-10. So that was pretty bad. And then Virginia Tech as well, lost to them 38-10. Then November hit. This team lost a couple of close games to Boston College and Georgia Tech, but did find a way against Pitt and then Wake Forest to get to bowl season. Your key points: South Florida 6-6. This team is strong on offense. Defense, not so much. That's really the bottom line about this team. So, I mean, their pass defense is nearly the worst in the FBS, but at least the matchup isn't terrible for them. If they were taking on at least, even in the slightest, a good passing game, South Florida would probably be done. But you're taking on Syracuse with Garrett Schrader, who's really not that strong of a passer. I mean, he has a good game once in a while, and he was pretty good at the start of the season, but otherwise, it's kind of been a struggle down the stretch. So if Schrader can have a strong game, they should win this game. That's really what it comes down to, and Schrader's going to have to find a way. And, I mean, they're still going to be able to find a way with Allen to at least maybe cause some trouble, because South Florida's defense in general just is not very good. But if Garrett Schrader can have a strong game, that's really the way to success here for the Orange. But they are a more consistent and talented team. You can definitely have a lot more confidence in Syracuse than South Florida, given the way the Bulls have played this season. But either way, I think this is a pretty competitive matchup. And so with that, let's get the prediction here for South Florida and Syracuse coming up here in the Boca Raton Bowl. And in the end, I am going with the favorite. I'm going to be taking Syracuse 38-35. This actually could be, I mean, I know both teams are 6-6, but this could be actually a sneaky good matchup. I think we see a lot of scoring here. If you like scoring, this is probably going to be the game for you, as I do think we see it go pretty back and forth, and it's going to be a higher scoring matchup in the end. I'm going to take Syracuse by 3 in the end. I think they find a way, but I mean, once again, you look at South Florida's defense, just not very reliable. So I think Syracuse is going to score a lot of points. In South Florida, the only way the Bulls are going to win this game is if they can keep up and if their defense can be strong. If South Florida can keep Syracuse offense contained like they did against Charlotte to finish out the regular season, South Florida could definitely win this matchup. They probably have the better offense in comparison to Syracuse. In fact, I'd be pretty confident in saying that. But either way, I'm taking Syracuse by 3. I'll say 55% towards the Orange. Taking the over as well pretty confidently. I think we see, once again, a pretty high-scoring game here in Syracuse to cover the spread in the end. It's currently 3 points towards Syracuse, so with this court prediction, it technically would be a push. But if I'm going to go on either side, it's about a coin toss, but I would probably take Syracuse in the end. But with that, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup. I appreciate you guys all watching as always. My name's Evan. This is All Sports Central. Stay tuned for more. We'll catch you on the next one.